you don't think it can happen to you.
The hit-and-run chase in California, a motorcycle rider witnessing a driver slam into several cars and then speeding away.
It can happen to you within seconds, a blink of an eye.
Tonight about the man suspected of killing a woman in a hit-and-run and his plan to evade justice.
When you take your eyes off the road for just seconds, when you're driving your car, oh, yes, it can happen to you. See, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When the sands of time will run out within your hourglass.
New at 10, a hit and run caught on video, and now a teenager and his family are looking for the driver who took off.
He was a victim of a distracted driver hitting the road while riding his motorcycle going 65 miles per hour. He nearly lost his life. Now on a crusade to help save lives and prevent someone else from becoming a victim, the creator of DistractedDriversBusted.com and now the host of this podcast, it's Howard Drescher.
All right, welcome to another show of DistractedDriversBusted.com, the podcast show. I am your host, Howard Drescher, the creator of DistractedDriversBusted.com, and of course now this podcast show. You can follow me on Twitter at DistractedDBTV, at DistractedDBTV, and of course on Facebook, DistractedDB. And you can get the shows on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. Well, that's not the only place you can get the show. You can now get it on Amazon. My show is now on Amazon, guys. Yes, all right. So, surprisingly, I didn't know my show has been on Amazon, and I appreciate them for welcoming the DistractedDriversBusted.com, the podcast show crew. We all are proud to be on Amazon at this time, and quite honestly, I found out by mistake. I was searching Amazon, and recently, well, probably sometime last year, I upgraded my Apple Watch, and I got 90 days of free music. I was just flipping around to find the music and find out what they had. And then I backed out of that, and I went to Google, and I started typing in, what is there out there about me? And all of a sudden, it said I'm on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. And all of a sudden, down at the bottom, it said on Amazon. So thank you very much, Amazon. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you for accepting us as one of your shows on Amazon. Thank you. All right. I'm your host again, Howard Drescher, the creator of DistractedDriversBusted.com, the podcast show. Very interesting story today. Next week, well, I guess I could say that last week we had a story from Fox 5 in Atlanta, and it was about the young woman who was injured in an accident, a head-on crash by a DUI perpetrator. Her boyfriend was in a car, but then her toddler was also in the car, and the toddler passed away, unfortunately. Well, the aunt was the woman that you heard in the audio clip last week, if you listened to the show. And I actually went ahead and I reached out to her, and I'm hoping to get her on my show for next Tuesday. We're going to do an earlier show as we're starting to wind down the year of 2021. And look, there is no simple way to say this. There is no simple way to say this. So me personally, the young man, kind of faced his day in court from what I understand. Now, I don't know the results yet, but Wendy Keith is the young woman that you heard in the audio clip. I reached out to her, and I talked to her on the phone, and she agreed to do the show, and I'm going to record it probably in a day or two. Christmas is coming up. I don't really want to drag her through reliving this all during this holiday time. But I want to find out what is up with Jada. I hope she's okay. Unfortunately, Josiah, the young child, is no longer with us. There is no good time for this kind of stuff to happen. I got to tell you, there is just no good time, especially during the holidays. And, you know, I sit back and I just can't imagine what it's like. And I hope I never have to find out. But I do know what it's like to be in a crash. As you all know, that I was a victim of a distracted driver, and I hit the ground doing 65 miles an hour on the 91 freeway out here in California. I'm lucky enough to survive it. A couple of broken bones, a lot of road rash, if you will. Now I am not ever going to get back on a motorcycle again. As much as it pains me and as much as I would love to do it, I just can't do it anymore. My mind isn't there anymore. And see, that's what we've talked about before in the past. Not only is it a loss of a family and the family members, and they trickle it down to other family members, but loss of income, loss of life, loss of memories, things that will never ever happen again. And yet these are the things that still continue, even though that we all know that drinking and driving is not really allowed anymore. We all know about the mad commercials. We all seen them. We've all seen the PSAs. We've all seen the billboards out there. Don't text and drive. Don't drink and drive. Look, Uber, Lyft, call a friend, call a cab, call your boss, call your parents, call some family member. Somebody's going to pick you up. It's better them getting mad at you than you not being here. Either that or you end up killing somebody and you go to jail probably for a very long time. And quite honestly, they'd be pissed at you even more. So think about that. Think about that, if you will. All right, you're listening to DistractedDriversBusted.com, the podcast show. When we come back, okay. Police officers are supposed to be, well, they're supposed to be on the side of the law. But every now and then, you have a bad apple.
You're listening to the DistractedDrivers.com podcast. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me. I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Honey, are you ready to go to the party? We're late.
What? Yeah, don't worry. I'll be ready in 5 minutes, babe.
Really? Can you get off the phone? I'm already ready. We're going to be late.
Yeah. Don't worry. I'm almost done.
Let's go. Come on.
Oh, okay, honey. Let's go.
Can you be ready next time? I feel like I'm always ragging on you to get ready for these types of parties. Yeah. Isn't the man supposed to be waiting on the lady anyway?
I'm sorry, babe. I know I say this all the time, but I promise. Next time, I really promise next time I'll be ready, and I'll be ready to go by the time you get home.
Gosh.
Let me see who that is. I'm waiting to see if my friend is actually going to be at this party.
No! Leave your phone alone. You know that scared me last time. You nearly hit someone walking in a crosswalk.
What? No, you're crazy. Look, I told you don't tell me what to do. I got this.
Stop the car. stop it now. I just can't be with someone who doesn't care about my life, not to mention their own.
Babe, wait, come back. This isn't happening, is it?
Now, back to the DistractedDrivers.com podcast.
All right, welcome back to DistractedDriversBusted.com podcast show. I am your host, Howard Drescher, the creator of DistractedDriversBusted.com, and of course now this podcast show. And you can follow me on Twitter at DistractedDBTV, at DistractedDBTV, and of course on Facebook, DistractedDB. And you can get this show along with any other show during the past 7 years on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and now on Amazon. Use the keyword DistractedDB and they will come up. All right. So law enforcement is supposed to help save lives. Law enforcement is supposed to protect and serve. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of officers do the right thing. It's just like in your work, your job, there's a lot of good people, and then there's a lot of, well, less desirable, bad apples, if you were. The same thing with law enforcement. It happens every now and then. A bad apple, falls into the barrel just like the rest of the good apples or the good officers. And in this case, just like in your job, there is the good and the bad. That's just the way it is in life. That's no other way to explain it except that is exactly what happens. So with that said, there is a story that somebody sent to me about a law enforcement officer who was speeding, driving reckless, 2 other officers in a car, and he was definitely speeding because it was a high rate of speed. I think it was over 100 and some miles an hour on a high-speed chase, faces DUI charges. Somebody sent this to me, but I tracked it down just a little bit, and I want to say that the audio came from at 11 Live News. And if it is so, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the person that sent me the audio piece this time.
Just after 10 p.m. Sunday, December 5th, on I-20 West, near Bill Kennedy Way, Georgia State Patrol Trooper Youngblood sees a car traveling over 130 miles per hour in a 60-mile-per-hour speed zone. Inside, he'd soon learn was 25-year-old Rockdale County Deputy Tobias Holmes. According to the GSP incident report, Youngblood tried catching up to Holmes' Honda Accord as he failed to maintain his lane, aggressively coming up behind another car, almost hitting it. That's when another trooper joined the pursuit, boxing Holmes in. They were able to safely get Holmes to pull over. He was then handcuffed and, according to the report, told Trooper Youngblood he's a law enforcement officer with the Rockdale Sheriff's Office. Youngblood wrote he could, quote, smell an overwhelming odor of an alcoholic beverage emitting from his breath. Holmes allegedly refused to do a field sobriety test. It also reads that all other people in the car, which included 2 other Rockdale County deputies, were under the influence of alcohol as well, and adds that 2 of the deputies, including Holmes, had their service weapons on them, while the third had a personal firearm. The report charges Holmes with driving under the influence by alcohol, speeding, fleeing, and attempting to elude, and reckless driving. Holmes was transported to the Atlanta City Jail while a Rockdale County sergeant picked up the other 3, taking all their weapons too.
All right, and that sound came from 11 Live, at 11 Live News, and I appreciate them for allowing me to use the sound. And for the person that sent that to me, I appreciate that as well. But it is true. 130 miles an hour in a 60-mile-an-hour zone, speeding, drunk, reckless driving, having weapons in the car, even though that they're law enforcement agents, officers. But that's no excuse. They should be, really taken, to the tilt, just like anybody else that was driving 130 miles an hour plus, and they're drunk in a high-speed chase, now facing DUI charges. I don't know what to say about this, except, man, it really bothers me when I talk about stories related to law enforcement officers that kind of, derail themselves and they go off the grid. They're not in right field, they're in left field. They don't know where they're at. This kind of bothers me for the simple fact that it is, a moment that they're not going to be able to get back. It's a moment that now has changed their lives and their families' lives if they are married and have kids. Now their worlds are upside down. We thank God right now that, they did not end up crashing, killing themselves, or more or less any other pedestrians or any other drivers out there, because there is no telling exactly what could happen during that time frame. And you know as much as I do, once those cars going that fast, it's so easy to lose control. And when you lose control, there is no telling where that car is how many times it's going to flip over, where it's going to land, how many buildings it's going to hit, how many, people it's going to take out in its path. It's just something we just don't do. It's something that shouldn't happen. If we really kind of expect our citizens not to do that, we expect actually our law enforcement officers not to do that. And I really hate to see this. And, I hope this law enforcement officer gets some help. And, maybe, I doubt that he'll be on the law enforcement agency anymore, but you never know. I just hope he gets help and that he never has an issue like this again. Again, you're listening to DistractedDriversBusted.com, the podcast show. Oh my goodness. I got to tell you, when it comes to it, this is the second Christmas parade crash that I've heard about since like Thanksgiving. I don't know if there's more out there or less, but when you're 72, don't you think you need to stop driving? Maybe. Let's talk about it. We'll be back right after this.
You're listening to the DistractedDrivers.com podcast. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work.
Sorry, I'm late.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi. Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Now, back to the DistractedDrivers.com podcast.
All right, welcome back to the DistractedDriversBusted.com podcast show. I am your host, Howard Drescher, the creator of DistractedDriversBusted.com. And, of course, now this podcast show. You can follow me on Twitter at DistractedDBTV, at DistractedDBTV, and, of course, Facebook, it's DistractedDB. You can get this show on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts, now along with Amazon. You can get it on Amazon, and I just found out that about a week ago, and I am glad that we are now on Amazon, that maybe we can reach out to more and more people. Look, if this is your first time listening to the show, probably I wouldn't listen to my first years of podcast shows, to tell you the truth. Quite honestly, I really didn't know what I was doing. And eventually I figured out exactly what I wanted to do. I've changed it up quite a bit. I've had good guests. I've had bad guests. I've had doctors. I've had lawyers. I had, California Highway Patrol, LAPD. I've had officers from other states on. I've had a lot of victims. I've only had one perpetrator, I believe. I got to find that link in the story. I'd like to play that again. I just wonder if he is actually kind of more like has changed. He indicated that he would not do it because he was a perpetrator, and luckily he stayed at the scene, but he was texting and driving, and I believe that he indicated during the time of the show, look, I'm not doing this stuff anymore, so never mind. It ain't worth it. It's just not worth it. It can wait. I believe that was his exact words. Look, it can wait. I hear the slogans out there. It can wait. All right. So here's a story that I got from WPTV News, and I appreciate them for allowing me to use the sound. So when it comes to driving, how old is too old? And how old is, well, I don't want to say it's too old because of the fact that I hope to be that age someday where I'm still driving and I'd like to have my freedom to where I can drive. But when things like this kind of happens, you wonder, is it worth it? And again, this story comes from WPTV News, and I appreciate them for allowing me to use the sound.
Right now, a 72-year-old woman is charged with driving under the influence in a crash after the city Christmas parade that injured 2 spectators last night in Vero Beach. Now, we brought you this as breaking news at 11 p.m. Now, police say Susan Harvey of Vero Beach was driving a car at about 7 p.m. Saturday when she struck a man and a woman at the 3400 block of Ocean Drive. 2 spectators, a couple in their 90s, were struck from behind as they loaded chairs into the trunk of their car after the parade finished. They suffered non-life-threatening injuries.
Again, that story came from WPTV News out there in Florida, and I appreciate them for allowing me to use the sound. Now, this does not sound like the Christmas parade where that guy drove around in, I think it was an SUV or a truck, and he plowed down quite a few people. And I think women and children were also involved in that. But to me, I think the elderly lady, the 72-year-old woman, she just maybe, instead of stepping on the brake, she stepped on the gas. I don't really have the full story. But again, the Christmas parade, it should be something that should be blocked off, and that area should be tightened up as well. So that way, these kinds of things don't happen again. So here is a story that I've got, and it comes from Denver, at Denver. It's Channel 7 in Denver, at Denver Channel. If you follow them on Twitter, you know the handle, at Denver Channel. And it's about an Aurora woman who shares her terrifying story of a crash with a DUI driver. And unfortunately, again in this one, somebody lost their life. And again, I appreciate Channel 7 in Denver for allowing me to use the sound.
An Aurora woman involved in a horrific crash this weekend, and she was the lucky one. The driver suspected of DUI crashed into her car, killing the passenger in the suspect's car. Denver 7's Ivan Rodriguez spoke to the woman who was hit and somehow walked away with just minor injuries.
Wait. Get it. Good boy.
For Sunhee Price, these moments with her dog Pumbaa were almost taken away forever. Saturday around midnight, Price says she dropped her nephew off at work at this gas station on the intersection of Airport Boulevard and 6th Avenue. When she got back on the road, the light to cross was red, but when it turned green...
I was kind of waiting for the person on my left to go. They didn't go, so I was like, okay, I'll go. Bad decision.
That's the moment Aurora police say a car driving north on Airport crashed into Price, who was crossing the intersection.
Next thing I know, my ears are ringing, my car is spinning out of control. I don't know if I lost consciousness or not.
Frantically, she gets out of her car. Pumbaa had been ejected from the windshield.
I just was expecting to find him on the ground or just a lifeless body somewhere.
Price and Pumbaa are okay. The suspected driver who hit her is not. He's in the hospital, and his passenger was killed. Flowers and messages of love now gather at the crash site where she lost her life.
Unfortunately, now that lady is no longer with us. I almost lost my dog, almost lost myself, and the driver broke his leg too. It's very scary to think if I wouldn't have hesitated at the green light, if I just would have left.
A moment impacting the lives of everyone involved, as well as questions on what could have been. Ivan Rodriguez, Denver 7.
All right, again, I appreciate Denver 7 for allowing me to use the audio. It is terrifying. It is very terrifying when you get into a crash. I've talked about it many times. Many of my guests have talked about it many times. And it's now to the point where it is terrifying. People, and I've heard the story the other day, there's a lot of road rage out there with people all pinned up in their homes, and they're starting to get out. And then the possibility now with the coronavirus all starting all over again, people are, governments, each state is channeling their own kind of defense mechanism. Should we shut down everything as it was before in the past? Do we have people going, are we wearing masks or are we not wearing masks? People are just kind of messed up right now with everything that is going on, and their temperaments are short. They fly off the handle. They drive crazy. I see road rage a lot. I drive a long way to work and I drive a long way back home. I see road rage all the time. I see people with brand new cars speeding in and out of lanes, and yet they, at nighttime, at 5, 6 o'clock, it's already dark. They have just their daylight running lights on. They have no lights in the back, so you can't really tell if you're driving normal or somebody's driving fast. Are they going to see you in time? And how, there's nothing worse than probably getting rear-ended and you had no idea that the car was coming up, or you did know, and if you try to brace yourself, you tighten up your muscles, it could be sustain more injuries because now you're all tensed up and everything. It is just a shame that this kind of stuff still continues to happen. And I would have to say, as long as they keep doing it, I'm planning on still talking about it, and I'm trying to bring the stories to light. So just to let you know, there are some good people out there. We have a lot of good Samaritans. We have a lot of good drivers. We have a lot of safe drivers. But yet, again, you have your 10%. Your 10% of the people that are causing mayhem for everybody. You got people that are getting killed by hit-and-run drivers. You got people that are DUI drivers crashing into other people. They're getting out of their cars. They're running. They're crashing into homes, getting out of their car, running. Again, unless you take your registration and your information, you're going to be caught sooner or later. And when you get caught, keep in mind, there is no justification or there is no term limits, if you will, on the fact that you now are wanted in a felony case by a hit and run. And when you run, it now becomes a felony. I just can't I can't emphasize that enough to where you need to really group yourself and get back into normalization. Because think about if you hit somebody and you run. Now think about if the hands was turned the other way and somebody hit your family member. It could be your mother, your father, your brother, your aunt, your uncle, your cousin, or somebody that you love, and they get hit and the driver runs. How would you feel? Or are you going to be the guy or the girl that goes, I'm going to get them. I'm going to track them down. I'm going to make them pay. It doesn't make any sense. So if you're going to try to track them down, what makes you think that somebody's not going to track you down? Just think about that. It's just common sense. All right, again, you're listening to DistractedDriversBusted.com, the podcast show. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening to me. And again, you get the shows on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and now Amazon. Until the next show, remember, I don't want to die today for you. Don't let anyone take the sands of time within your own hourglass. Until next time, be safe.